Hey everybody, John from Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue here, and today we're going to be talking about fat. No, not my fat. Bacon fat.
All I wanna do is drink beer for breakfast. All I wanna eat is them barbecue chips.
That's right. Today we're going to be talking about that often forgotten about, often thrown out, lovely, leftover, luscious liquid that we get when we cook one of God's greatest gifts to man. Well, next to beer, of course. And that is bacon. You know, I honestly believe that there are vegans out there that are truly closet bacon fans. I mean, who can resist cramming a fistful of bacon into your face hole whenever you smell that stuff cooking through the entire house? I bet that there are some vegans out there who may not admit it, but secretly love, cook, and crave bacon on the side. Now, they may feel guilty about it later and go pray to their vegetable god for forgiveness, and that's okay. Bacon has that effect on people, and I forgive them for it.
So why am I doing an entire video on the beauty and glory of bacon grease? Well, that's simple. Several weeks ago, Dixie Vodka out of Charleston, South Carolina posted on their Instagram page a simple question. Who uses their bacon fat? And at the time I answered it, sure, I use it all the time. But I started thinking that who else actually uses it? So I started asking around at work and I found out that nobody uses their bacon fat, and I'm not sure why. So the purpose of this video is to show you how I collect it, how I use it, and give you a couple recipes later down the road to show you what you can do with it and why it can be so beneficial in the kitchen. So thank you for joining me today, and let's start cooking, shall we?
One of the reasons why I think people don't keep and cook with their bacon fat is because most people fry their bacon. And I think most people fry their bacon really high and really hot. And when you cook bacon really hot, you can very easily push it past its smoke point. The smoke point of bacon grease is about 370 degrees. And if you cook it too hot and too fast, you're going to break that grease. And it's going to get nasty, it's going to taste burnt, and it's going to be very bitter. I very rarely do I fry my bacon. I do on occasion. It's a little bit easier than what I usually do. But most of the time, I bake my bacon. And the process that I use is by using a simple casserole dish, like this right here. Nice little clear dish, it's glass, it's very easy. Set that thing down, and then I use a cookie cooling rack right on top of it. One of the only bad things I find about cooking my bacon like this is I can't cook an entire pound at one time. So I have to cut my rashers in half and cook about a half a pound at a time. So the way I usually do that is I leave it in the packet and I just cut it right down the center. Find it about as good as you can and just cut that right down the middle. And then I just layer up one side at a time. Slide that piece out, you can put it right there, and then you peel them off one at a time and just drop them on the board. Now, if you look at your cooling rack, you're going to have, most of them have the little tines right on top of each other like this, and that's good because as it cooks, it wants to retract a little bit, and those little tines will kind of hold it in place. So you're left with a beautiful flat piece of bacon, which is perfect for putting on sandwiches and BLTs. We make a lot of BLTs, but if you want to throw them on a burger, you got this nice little flat piece. It's not as easy to get that flat piece of bacon when you fry it because it wants to coil up, retract, and actually bundle up on itself. But cooking it like this, I have found, gives me a really nice flat piece of bacon, makes it really perfect for sandwiches and everything else. So we're going to go ahead and finish putting this stuff on here and
Bacon.
get going.
I love bacon. Bacon. Give me bacon. It's not just for breakfast anymore. Go buy a pound or two at the grocery store. Don't give other food a second glance. I keep a few slices in my pants of bacon.
For those of you who have seen my channel before, you know that if I'm not cooking with alcohol, I'm drinking something alcoholic while I'm cooking. So for today, this is what I'm drinking. It is Two Roads Brewery too juicy. Nice little play on words, throwing in the kind of the name of their brewery on top of that. But this is a New England IPA that pours with a beautiful golden color, actually. Take a look at that. Nice and pretty. Let's wait that settle down to see if we can get that typical New England haze going on there. Looks beautiful. I like it. Very quickly, the hoppiness really pops into your nose. Not a lot of info on that can, but this smells very good. That is tasty. A very dangerous beer though. This is one of those that on a hot sunny day like we have right now in Florida, this goes down so quick, so fast. Really tasty, a little bit of hoppiness, very citrusy, which I really like. I like my IPAs that have a little bit of citrus to it. Not very bitter like some of the other IPAs can be, but this is actually very beautiful. I love this one. I'm going to have to buy several more of these. Not very often do I say that. Usually I like to drink a lot of individual beers because I like to try as much as I can. I like to consider myself the Pokemon trainer of beers. I just gotta try them all. And very rarely do I come across one where I just want to have a stockpile of that in the fridge. And this is one of those. So very good job, Two Roads. Really happy I purchased this one. If you're an IPA fan, find this because you're definitely going to like it. So cheers. Now I know at the beginning of this video I said that I like to cook it like this because I get really pretty flat pieces of bacon. Cooking it like this, I have found, gives me a really nice flat piece of bacon, nice flat piece of bacon, nice flat piece of bacon. And you can tell just how much this bacon has retracted. But if you look at it from the side, they did coil up just a little bit. It seems like every time I make a video like this and I say one thing, it always seems to kick me in the butt and do something different. But anyway, they're still pretty flat. They're a lot flatter than they would be if we were to fry them. So anyway, but this right here is what you're going to get. Now I got a lot more bacon to cook. This did not generate a lot of grease because this was not a very fatty bacon. Now after you've taken the bacon from the pan, I like to use a paper plate, put it right there on the counter, and then I take a little paper towel, stick it right on top of that paper plate, and then I take one of these spatulas, then I scoop it up and then I flip it over onto the paper plate. Now the reason why I flip it over is because sometimes when it cooks, there's little bitty puddles of bacon grease that gets on top of that bacon, and by flipping it over, that now goes into this paper towel. And then we just throw it away when we're done. We're not going to try to save that. But this is hot, so now I'm going to move. We've already finished cooking all of our bacon, and we took the bacon out and we put that aside. Now we're left with the fat in the pan. We didn't get a lot of fat from that bacon. That bacon was very lean, but we got enough in here that we can pull off, and I can still show you the process and how we do it. So for this video, I'm going to pour it off into the little ice cube trays that I showed you earlier. Now, it's still pretty hot. I suggest always letting it cool just a little bit, but I always take a colander, like a little, just a little straining thing like this, and then I use a measuring cup. Put those two together just like that. Pour that off into here. It's going to strain some of the bigger bits out of it. Some of the smaller bacony pieces will go through, and that's all right. You want a little bit of bacon bits in there every now and then. Adds a little bit of extra flavor, but that's what we do. Now the hard part is sometimes keeping that thing straight when you want to pour that in. Now that we got this poured off, you can see a couple of little bacon bits stuck in the bottom of that. We're going to get rid of this. Now we're going to take our ice tray. We're going to pour this into the bowl. Just like that. Right to the top. You can pour it into any side you want. We're not going to have enough to fill all of these anyway, so it doesn't matter. I usually get about 5 or 6 cubes when I put them in the trays. That's a little bit less than what I normally get. Now after you've taken your grease out, you've strained it and you put it in your ice trays. Come back here and put it on the shelf of your freezer for about 30 minutes to an hour. It doesn't need to be fully frozen before you can take it out. After that, close the door and forget about it. So most of you, if you've watched my videos before, you know that I deal mostly in bout rights when I cook. Now for those of you who are new and you don't know what a bout right is, that's whenever you take an ingredient, instead of measuring it into a spoon, you dump a little in there until it looks about right. So most of the time, because of that, I'll pour my bacon fat into a little ramekin like this, and then I'll just take out a scoop or two of whatever it is that I need. Once I pour it in here, I'll keep it into a Ziploc baggie and just throw it in the freezer or fridge somewhere so that the smells don't and flavors don't get attracted to this. Now, for those of you who are a little bit more measurement friendly, we'll say, you could use one of these. This cute little thing is nothing but a little small little ice tray. You can pick them up at any store, but right here is 1 tablespoon. You pour that puppy out into that. Ta-da! 1 tablespoon. You're welcome, America, or wherever else you happen to be watching me from. So now that you've harvested your bacon fat, you've poured it off into whatever container you want to use. In this case, we're using the ice trays. Now what do you do with it long term? Well, I simply use one of these little, temporary use type of containers. You can buy them at any grocery store. They come in a 3-pack. They're relatively cheap. And then this cute little button on the back, all you gotta do is put it over and pop them out right into that bowl. Nice and simple, nice and clean. Oh, missed one. And voila, nice and easy. Now, I always like to keep them in a container that I can keep covered. I guess a plastic baggie will work too, but I think they might have a tendency to get a little nasty in there. But I always put in something I can keep covered up, because fats can collect smells and odors from other stuff you have in there. So if you have onions and other vegetables and stuff like that, it can pick it up in there, and that might not be something you want in the next dish you plan on cooking with this. So that's how I harvest my bacon grease. But I didn't really get into detail about what I use it for. That's pretty simple. I use it pretty much for anything that I want to add just a little bit of bacon flavor to it. When you extract the bacon grease from the bacon, you're left with a really nice lard. So this lard is not pure like the stuff you buy. What it is, it's got a little bit of a bacon tint to it. But essentially, it's the same thing. Your smoke point on it's about 370 degrees, so you're not going to do a lot of deep fat frying in this. But you can fry eggs in it, and that is what I mostly use it for. There's also a green bean dish that I make with a little bit of bacon bits and stuff like that into it, which will be coming up in part 2. Here's a cornbread recipe I use it for, which will also be in part 2. But what I'm going to do for you, or at least I'm going to start in this video for you, is a fat washed bourbon. Yeah, you heard me right. We're going to use the bacon fat to flavor a bourbon. Now, we're going to take a regular jar. We're going to take some of those bacon fat cubes that you saw me use earlier. I don't really know how many I'm going to use. I'm going to use 3 tablespoons. Remember, we measured this out. I know that each one of those is a tablespoon as long as it's the full size. We're going to drop this puppy in the microwave for as long as we need to make it a liquid again. So I'm not sure if you actually saw that, but whenever I put the jar in originally with the bacon fat, it started to spark in the microwave. I don't know why. And then I tried to record it again. I just took it out of the jar and put it into a measuring cup, which I've had in my microwave numerous times before, and it sparked again. So I don't know if it's something with the bacon fat that's causing it to freak out like that, but we're just going to move ahead and continue with our regularly scheduled idiocy. Okay, so now that we have our fat in a liquid state, we're going to take a regular jar just like this. We're going to take this guy and put this in here. Right now I use 3 tablespoons. Not sure what the recipe is. I'm sure there's a recipe out there somewhere, but again, I pretty much go with about rights anyway. So I'm using Jim Beam for this. Jim Beam is a readily available bourbon. It is one of those things that I can tell somebody Jim Beam and you already have an idea of the flavor of this. So I want to use, for our purposes here, a bourbon that anybody can try out before and after this. We're just going to dump this in here. Of course, I'm not going to use a very expensive bourbon on something I'm going to be mixing with bacon fat until I know just how well it comes out. We're going to save this bottle though, because if this is good, we're going to wind up putting it back in that bottle for storage or for use later. Put it in this little jar and give it a good shake. We're going to let that sit for a couple days, and we'll have to taste test this whenever we do part 2. Okay? That's it, everybody. That is the end of part 1. I would like for you to join me in part 2, where we actually start cooking with this bacon fat and showing you all the lovely, beautiful things that you can do with this gorgeous little leftover liquid. My name is John. I'd like to thank you for joining me in my kitchen as I do this thing that I do, and hope you have many good beers in your future. And like I said, whether it's in the recipe or in the chef, everything is better with alcohol. If you like this thing that I do, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know about it. Give me some comments. Tell me if there's anything that you want me to do. And if you have any recipes, please let me know about them, because I'd like to hear everything about it. Now, I'm going to go finish this beer, and I'm going to have me some bacon, and I'll see you guys in part 2. You guys didn't leave me any bacon?
Nope.
Nah.
Nope.
Kids.